Hey YouTube, this is Steven, and I want to talk with you guys about something that I ran across in my day-to-day real life. Alright, so I ran across a shirt, and the t-shirt said Blue Lives Matter. And I'm like, okay, now there's Blue Lives Matter merchandise? Because I've already heard Blue Lives Matter already as the newest hashtag or whatnot. Newest slogan or whatever. But I'm like, wait a minute though. I thought that all lives matter though, right? Isn't that every time black people say Black Lives Matter, it's like, no, all lives matter. At least some people, who want to deflect from the topic of racism. They're like, all lives matter, racism doesn't exist, blah 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 blah. Blah blah blah, blah. I don't hear you, right? But yet these pretty much these same people have the nerve to not only co-op your stuff, not only co-op black people stuff, and change it and turn it into a perversion by saying Blue Lives Matter. Not only that, but they also have the audacity to make money off of it. They tell you that your stuff is wrong, right? They tell you that it's wrong. Like, no, you're saying only Black Lives Matter, you're being divisive, all lives matter, we're all in this together, yada yada yada, right? They say that, and in that process they're like shaming you or trying to shame black people for speaking out for themselves, advocating for themselves and their plight in this country, in the United States. And like, why the shaming? Why the shaming? Now, I noticed when Blue Lives Matter, that slogan popped up, there was no shaming, not the same people were doing the shaming. Like, not the same people who said all lives matter. They weren't saying, oh, wow, Blue Lives Matter? Oh no, all lives matter. Like, no, they didn't say that when Blue Lives Matter came up. They only said that when Black Lives Matter came up. You know what I'm saying? If you don't, let me just break it down. Basically, what I'm saying is, once, like, when it comes to blue lives, they'll let that slide. But when it comes to Black Lives Matter, they won't let that slide. Someone has to speak out against Black Lives Matter because for some reason that makes people feel uncomfortable when they say Black Lives Matter. That's why you get that old hashtag, oh, all lives matter. But now it's gotten even worse. Now they're saying Blue Lives Matter. And I'm like, okay, where are the same people who's saying all lives matter? Where are they coming out to say, like, no, that's wrong, shaming them like they shame people who say Black Lives Matter, and they seem pretty much, non-existent. The people who are speaking out against the Blue Lives Matter hashtag were probably the people who are being shamed when they said Black Lives Matter, and I just, it's basically just like a big example of like cultural appropriation, because black people are being shamed for Black Lives Matter, Black people are probably also being targeted for Black Lives Matter, like being associated with it and saying it, etc. Yet, the people who are causing black people to say all lives matter, the police in this case, like, they have been able to co-opt the Black Lives Matter slogan and turn it into Blue Lives Matter without anybody checking it. Like, anybody in a, with a platform, anybody with like a big major platform to check it. Because there's been people with major platforms before who have checked Black Lives Matter, like, say, former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, and of course some more. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, but he pops into my head immediately. And I'm like, okay, all right, Blue Lives Matter. Okay, how come this all of a sudden comes up now? because cops have been dying in the line of duty for years, for a while now. Why wasn't there some type of a outcry before Black Lives Matter? Like, it just seems like, oh, like, you want it because you want it. Like, there's not a need for it, but you want it, because black people have something. And you're like, well, if they can have something, I definitely should be able to have something. Because a lot of times, many white people in particular feel like they are entitled to whatever black people have. That's of worth that they want. Of course, they're not going to want, black people struggle. Of course not. Who would want that, right? But I'm talking about something that is seen to be of some sort of a value. Like certain hairstyles, certain musical styles. The few things that black people do actually have that they can call their own. Especially in the situation that black people are in the United States, where black people don't really have much that they can call their own, like these few certain things that, cultural things that they can call their own are being sort of like snatched away, or at least like co-opted and appropriated, and black people aren't seeing the income from that, Really? I feel like, it's just like, how can these people make money off of this? Like, that's the thing, like, making money off of other people's stuff, stealing it, changing it around a little bit, change it around a little bit, and then calling it their own, as if it was just some sort of a completely unique thing that they thought of all by themselves, which it wasn't. It's not. Black people made it up, so black people need to be benefiting from this. I mean, I may come off as petty for saying that, but that's the truth. Preferably, I would not like to see Blue Lives Matter t-shirts, and really, to an extent, I don't even want to see probably like Black Lives Matter t-shirts, because I think that ultimately it is like more than just a slogan, even though it is a slogan, but it's more than that, because it speaks to a big issue that's been reoccurring for centuries, the value or lack of value of black lives. Because, and again, we have to take a trip back to slavery, unfortunately. It's not the best, trip I want to take. But again, when stuff like this pops up, we got to take a trip back to the slave days, unfortunately. But yeah, like back in slavery, they would often work black people to the bone, like literally. And then they would do that because they could just get another shipment of black people, like, within, not a snap of the hand or the wrist, or I think, well, not the wrist, not within a super quick amount of time, but like quick enough. They were replaceable. They didn't really have to invest much in them. So that was kind of like the recurring thing. Like, oh, well, these type of people are worked to the bone and they died. Oh, well, we can just replace them. Like, there's no value for black lives, and I think that's still reoccurring now. Like, oh, well, they'll just end up being replaced anyway, with, black people's birth rate and all, what I'm saying, that was an issue way back when, like, oh, these black people are, procreating at such high rates. I think that was an issue at one point too. That out of wedlock birth rate is crazy in the black community, etc. So yeah, ultimately, it's just like a theme of just not valuing black lives, and probably feeling like, well, someone's just going to replace them anyway. It's not like we've really lost anything, but for me, seeing Blue Lives Matter in opposition to Black Lives Matter. You know, it's just really, it's just, you know, it says a lot, and it's not good, you know, because these same people who would wear Blue Lives Matter probably would not wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. Let's keep it real. Do you really imagine them? Imagine the same people who would buy a Blue Lives Matter t-shirt buying a Black Lives Matter t-shirt? No. And also, I think I already mentioned this, but I'll mention this again just in case I didn't. I would rather not see any Blue Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter merchandise sold, in my personal opinion. Just because, as far as Black Lives Matter is concerned, I just feel like it's a, like, ultimately it's not something that should be on a t-shirt, you know. It's something that should probably be a lot more serious, and I think when you put it on a t-shirt, it may take away the seriousness of it. But then again, if people are selling Blue Lives Matter merchandise, then, well, black people need to benefit from their stuff too, you know. You know, in a perfect world, you know, well, in a perfect world, none of this would be happening, but in a decent world, you know, the people wouldn't be trying to, you know, profit off of other people's stuff, other people's cultural items, you know. And also the audacity, really, you know, these people just think they can just do whatever they want, you know. It's just like, well, who can check them to an extent at this moment? Like, who's gonna check them, you know? So they probably do feel like they can do whatever they want, because by and large they haven't been getting checked by anybody until like that Micah X situation. That was like a sampler of a test, you know. Well, it's a sampler of a check, you know, someone checking them, but not like on a grand scale, you know, not like on a big scale, so to speak, you know. But you know, the merchandise, it just rubs me the wrong way personally. You know, if I saw Black Lives Matter merchandise, I would still, like, I wouldn't feel the same way, but I would feel a little odd, depending on who's profiting off of it. But I could stomach Black Lives Matter merchandise way more than Blue Lives Matter merchandise. At least it's like that's something that black people came up with, and they should be profiting from if there's a profit to be made, but not like people co-opting stuff and changing it around just a little bit, like plagiarizing stuff and changing around just a little bit to avoid being called out on plagiarism, you know. And also, who is this message geared towards? Blue Lives Matter. Who are they saying this message to? Because Black Lives Matter is saying this message to people pretty much like the police force, but also just in general too, you know. But like to the like government, you know, police force, government, you know, the government basically, let's say. And you know, it says a lot when people have problems with Black Lives Matter and they're trying to derail from the topic by saying that, oh, Black Lives Matter means that no other life matters but black people. It's like, you're derailing. That's not what it means. You know, that's not what it means. You know, probably Black Lives Matter should have put Black Lives Matter too, you know, so that we could avoid having this conversation, but they probably didn't think they had to because they thought it was just self-explanatory. But apparently people don't have the intelligence to, you know, decipher that, or either don't want to decipher that. But I could go on for a little bit longer, but I think I'll bring this video to a close for now, because I think I mentioned pretty much all that I, you know, need to say, you know. And ultimately, just to sum it up, I don't appreciate it. You know, I don't appreciate people co-opting black people's stuff, changing it around a little bit, plagiarizing, co-opting, appropriating black people's stuff, changing it around a little bit, and making a profit off of it. You know, black people have been like so used, so exploited, and it's still continuing. It still is, and people say, oh, slavery ended like, years ago, slavery doesn't exist anymore. Well, I think chattel slavery ended. True. But slavery still is in effect. Just look at the prison system. That's slavery. And then some people derail from that topic. Well, they're prisoners. They don't have rights. Well, technically, they still do have rights now. Come on. They do. Especially when you have all these crazy folks in prison who probably should be given the death penalty, but they do have rights, but the thing is, like, they're just using the prison system as kind of like slavery, but it's kind of like they're using it as slavery, but they kind of just it's more covert instead of overt. Like before, slavery was pretty much overt, now it has to be covert, and that's the thing too. Like a lot of the bigotry and racism and stuff is covert nowadays, so it's not going to be so obvious because it's not, quote unquote, in fashion anymore, so they have to be a bit more sly about it. A lot of people are making comparisons between these police shootings and lynchings. The police shootings are the modern day lynching. And that's a good argument that can be made. Granted, there are differences, but still, ultimately, more or less the same. Because lynchings, people would have, there would be crowds. When lynching is concerned, I think that was used as a form of entertainment. Brutalizing and killing black people, and oftentimes this would take place even after church service was out, doing this demonic activity right after praising the Lord and having receiving the sermon for the week, and there would be crowds. This time around with the police shootings, they're being, like, black people are being shot, but it's being televised instead. So they're probably not like live crowds looking, but it's being televised. So anyone who has that bloodlust, who love to see black people in pain and black people, in agony, black people dead, they get their satisfaction with that. I know that's a creepy, disgusting, disturbing thought, but there are people like that out there, who really do find pleasure in the pain of black people, but yeah, long story short, I don't like it. I don't appreciate Blue Lives Matter merchandise or the slogan. I would have a drop bit more respect if they had just put All Lives Matter. At least they could pretend like they wasn't being covert bigots. At least you could pretend. But hey, another battle in the struggle of black people in America. I just, it's like, will black people ever find their happy ending? As far as like globally, but also specifically in America, will black people ever find their happy ending? Will black people ever, reach a point where there's no longer like a struggle? I hold out I hold out because I think I I don't want to say that black people can't find a happy ending, as a group of people, because I feel like that would be saying or giving in to ultimately all of this. Ultimately, I think black people can find a happy ending, but they're going to have to be very instrumental in getting to that happy ending. They're going to have to play a big role in it. There can't be like white saviors, because white saviors by and large don't exist for the most part. Um, and as far as white allies, that might be a possibility, you know, as well as just allies in other races as well. That could be a possibility, but ultimately, I think black people are going to have to do it themselves, you know, and it might have to is well, we tried politics, we couldn't get it through politics, we tried assimilation, we couldn't get it through assimilation. Um, you know, we tried many ways to get it, but one way that we haven't tried is through an all-out like revolution. You know, I mean, that's how America got its independence. You know, and one more thing I want to mention is that when black people were free, when black people got their freedom after slavery ended and whatnot, like black people didn't go and form groups like the KKK or the neo Nazis. They didn't do that, and black people had way more of a reason to form those groups than white people did. You know, white people were not the victims in that situation. Black people were, and also black people, if they were victims, black people weren't victimizing them. White people were. Because some people like to always throw like, oh, they were Irish slaves, or oh, these white people got discriminated against because they were poor. Well, that was white people doing the discriminating, you know. Um, but like I said, like black people didn't form those groups. Black people formed different groups. Like the NAACP, or the Civil Rights Movement. They've done it ultimately through peaceful means. And even in, more radical groups like the Black Panthers, they still weren't actually like going on the offensive. They were going on the defensive with weapons. That's the thing. They were, policing the police, so to speak. So it's going to have to be two ways you can hurt. The only two ways you can really hurt white supremacy is through, a revolution, or through finance, through money. So either you're going to have to divest from white supremacy, or you're going to have to battle it. You're going to fight it head on. So one of the two. And by the way, when you fight it, you pretty much are divesting from it, or you pretty much would have to divest from it anyway. So divesting, from white supremacy would probably be the easier of the two options, unless I guess the less violent of the two options. But I don't know. I'm not sure. But again, think about it. All these countries got their revolution, got their independence through revolution, through war. Something to think about. Because there hasn't been a war on U.S. soil in a while. And at this point now, as far as like the state of this country, you don't know where it's going to turn. You don't know where this country's going. Let's keep it real. We don't know who's going to get in the White House. and what they're going to do. You know. Well, let me bring this video to a close now. Sorry about that. Feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to give me a thumbs up. Your feedback and support are extremely appreciated and extremely valued. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.